Hello, Zyy'nai of planet Earth. My name is Zyy'nai, and in this episode we're going to be talking about the life partner hierarchy for the Zyy'nai. You could think of the life partner hierarchy as being like an advanced continuation of the social alchemy groupings that you've already learned about in the last episode. So you saw the inspirational groupings, also the same source grouping and things like that. But there's also whether or not the grouping is giving you inspiration, augmentation, or suppression. Inspirational relationships would be relationships where your powers are being inspired by having their inspirational powers pull your powers to get them to grow and expand themselves outside of their native shores, but within the channel that's native to them. Augmentation relationships will be with powers that you already have, so some form of Z and Nai, and this is going to augment you. This has already been covered in social alchemy, but what we're going to specifically focus on here is the context of life partners. Now, when we talk about life partners, we're talking about two important things. One is the fact that in order to have a life partner, you're going to need to have a complete story. That means all 8 powers need to be represented consciously between the two people involved in the relationship. It needs to be one harmonious, complete story. So all 8 powers must be represented here, and they must be at the correct levels of hierarchy in order to link up and to create a complete unified story. The second point is that this life partner is going to be the most intimate partner for you. So the gender of this person is going to be very important. You're going to need to not be competing with each other for the role that you do. This person is going to be around you a lot, and at the most intimate levels, all humans need to break away from being around just themselves, and they need to be completed. And that comes from powers that you don't have represented in the right ratios. So the top life partners for you are going to be the ones that give you the most inspiration. And there are 3 from that pyramid. So at the apex of the pyramid, there is the Zyy'nai, who also has Vi and Zhi. And those 4 powers line up perfectly with yours. They're the 4 powers that you don't have in perfect ratios, which is the Zez channel first, then the Nez channel, then the Vez channel, then the Zhez channel. Also very inspiring for a Zyy'nai is going to be the Zyy'vi, because even though they don't have all of the powers that you do as a Zyy'nai, they do have a repetition of your Nai and your V. So this can be an issue, but it is very inspiring to your Z, as Z is your source power and Zai is your source power, is their source power, and Zai is most inspirational to Z. The Ni Zai is also very inspiring for the Zyy'nai because they also have Zai and Ni as their top 2 momentum powers. And those are the most inspiring powers for the Zyy'nai. But the issue is that their Zai and their Ni are not in the most optimal ratio for the highest level of inspiration. The Ni Zai have the Nez channel first and the Zez channel second, so it's a bit off. It's very inspiring, but it's not ideal. And so this is why the Zyy'vi and the Ni Zai make the base of the inspirational triangle, and at the apex there's the Zyy'nai. Then there's augmentation. Augmentation mojos are mojos that are similar to you. So this is going to be other Zyy'nai at the apex, and at the base then there's going to be the Zvi and the Nai Z. But in context of an intimate life partner, you're going to have an issue with being in kind of life partner relationships with mojos that have powers that are too similar to yours. You're not going to have the full range of all 8 powers going on. So this is okay in a working relationship, but as far as an intimate and all-pervasive relationship, then that's going to be a problem because there's an overlapping with what you do. With life partners, there must not be competition of priority. So that's why with all inspirational relationships, they're going to see adaptives with directives, they're going to see objectives paired with subjectives, and so on and so forth. Because when paired this way, they don't compete with each other, and they're also favoring the same channels. And this is what you want. With augmentation, then there's going to be getting your own powers stronger than they were natively, but not actually expanding into the other 4. This is why it's actually not inspiration. But it's important to note that augmentation is a very strong social alchemy, and that's why it's the 3rd or 4th. The augmentations show up in recognition, same source pairing, and inverse pairing, so the energy here is very strong. This is important to note because some people will often feel that what defines life partner or intimacy is that the chemistry between the two should feel powerful. And that can happen without it actually being an ideal inspirational match. It's very important that you understand this concept because as a Zyy'nai, you'll have a very strong upgrading in your energy and confidence by hanging out with other Zyy'nai, also Zyy'nai and Nai. And this can become intimate, but it's more like you are intimate with a person that's on the job and you are a workaholic. Whenever you hook up with creatures who are basically doing the same energetic job you are, it's sort of like you don't have a complete life and you're basically just hanging out at work, doing what you do all the time, and also sleeping with your coworkers. That may not necessarily be a bad thing in some contexts, and there may even be a time where it's appropriate in your life, but this is not ideal and it does not complete you, so that's what you should take away. Now, a third energetic group worth mentioning here is called the Suppression Trio. And this has to do with mojos that are further away from you natively, like the Shades of Me grouping. As a Zyy'nai, this is going to relate a lot to the Zhai Alpha, specifically the Zhai V and the Zyy'nai, and also the V Zhai. These mojos are very, very different from you, and that's because their main powers modulate your powers. Now, there are other models of thought that assume that your main kind of ideal match in a life partner is going to be the mojos in the suppression relationship, and I'm here to tell you that that is complete nonsense. The kind of theory that they're going with, that they're assuming this based off on, is the idea that these two kind of groupings complete each other. And that's just not true at all, because even though they kind of are further away from each other, and that might sound complementary, it's actually not complementary. Inspirational relationships are complementary. Suppression, as opposed to complementary, is actually contradictory, because what you're actually getting out of the two is you're just improperly modulating each other. And your partner is not actually supposed to modulate you. You're designed to modulate yourself. You don't need another person modulating you for you. In inspirational relationships, you are actually inspired to heroically modulate yourself. So in other words, expand your potential out to further shores, which actually means kind of heroic fetishing. So you're actually designed to do all that yourself through inspiration. You shouldn't need another person doing the modulation for you. And when this happens, then it is not actually good energetically for your lifestyle. So the idea that the suppression trios are the correct life partner trio is completely wrong. Although the reason the suppression trio is actually a significant trio, significant enough for me to actually mention in this video, is because this actually can happen not too uncommonly in real life, this grouping. And the reason that this can happen is that if you're in a weakened state and life is kind of, kicking your ass, and the world is on you about doing your modulation stuff, so V and Zhai, having someone around who can handle the V and Zhai, well, that can actually feel good. It can feel like they're kind of saving you from it. And a sense of gratitude and security might come from this, and may cause any mojo to feel that the suppression relationship is actually helping them when it actually isn't. So this can get confusing for two reasons. One, they're going to be good at stuff that modulates you. And if you're, like I said, under attack by things that pull on your modulation powers, being with someone who will modulate you but also has a handle on those things that modulate you for you, that can seem like a reprieve. And the other thing is that the suppression trio has a lot of similarities to the way it looks to your inspiration. So as a Zyy'nai, you are ideally inspired by a Zyy'nai. Now, a Zyy'nai is energetically different as far as Zhai being their source power, and which makes for a radically different creature than the Zyy'nai. Although they are still a Nez tower, much like the Zyy'nai, and that has a lot of variations of the same maneuvers. So it can be seen in similar motifs and similar bubbles as you would see a Zyy'nai. So a Zyy'nai might be confused by the Nez tower signal because that seems to be strong at stuff or good at stuff, or have the equilibrium energy that they're natively attracted to, or the cross-contextualizing kind of abilities that come with the knee. And these are the things that you might think that you want in your life partner to have. And this is when you're taking stock of someone, but you can't actually read energetically how they're pinging you. And you may not know that until years later. But at first you might think to yourself that this is the kind of person who, in general, kind of passes your idea of what you want in a life partner if you're not actually reading them. If you don't know how to read mojo or judge character, then you might be going with a resume sort of way of coming at this. And if you're just going to go with this resume style, then a lot of times both of the Nez towers look quite similar if you don't know how to read energetics. So this could be confusing, and you might end up thinking that this person is what's for you. There are other groupings as well, such as compensation and partitioning, which pretty much captures all other mojos that we haven't mentioned for the Zyy'nai. You could have as an intimate life partner with potentially any of these, and if you did have one of these kinds of relationships with one of these mojos, then you'd be doing some variation of keeping them from certain parts of your life. You would have to, as the word partitioning says, you would kind of have to partition them into just specific things, specific activities, specific parts of your lifestyle. And this is because they're really not going to be able to kind of do it on your level in some way because of the fact that they're not inspirational. Or when you do it together, then you are going to have to spend more energy than you should, or do some kind of special workarounds in order to get things flowing. So this is why the kind of relationships that pop up mostly are actually going to be from those three triangles that we mentioned. This relates to a Zyy'nai, also in mojo reading. The fact that these three trios have the most energetic effect for different reasons on a Zyy'nai, that's going to be something that relates to making sure you know how that relates to a romantic or intimate partner, because you are heavily affected by someone, and that could lead to intimacy, and even though that may not be what should actually happen. But as far as mojo reading goes, early on when you start mojo reading, you're going to need to feed yourself. As your psyche gets fed, then it's going to want to do what's feeding it more, especially if it's a good, healthy feeding. So when you're doing mojo reading, you'll find that something that is of interest to your psyche is going to be easier for you to mojo read because your psyche will get more geared up toward it. The signals are also going to pop out more because energetically they're more important to you because they either inspire you or augment you or because they suppress you. So know yourself, grow yourself, and save the world.